If you could do the roll call, please.
Mrs. Daly? Here. Mrs. Drake? Here. Mrs. Feeney? Here. Mrs. Foote? Mr. Hill?
Here.
Dr. Jerome?
Here.
Mrs. O'Brien? Here. Mrs. Peckle? Mr. Richardson? And Greg Bader? Justin Hearn.
We have no quorum. If you could observe the attendance to the front and rear of the auditorium, please stand to join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on, I'd like to provide a presentation to the budget presentation of the proposed revised school budget for 2011-2012.
So before we go to that presentation, there's been a lot of talk in the community. People were concerned that we're having a meeting at 4 today because it will exclude the community from being here. Can you explain the time frame we're on and how you could have meetings exactly?
First things are on my agenda. I'd like to thank everybody for being able to come. Can you hear me okay? Is that okay? I'd like to thank everybody for coming. We are on an extremely unique and tight timeline here as far as the construction of the budget. We've been having posted meetings to comply with state regulations as far as days needed to do postings, days needed to make decisions. So again, apologize for the unique time of the day, but we needed to do this primarily because we also have a big celebration in Durham Elvis this evening. I believe it's your arts and chorus collage concert. So we hope that everybody can join us after this meeting to celebrate some of the great achievement of our students. To begin this evening, I'd like to introduce once again the new superintendent that will be coming in July. Mr. James Florio is here visiting with us today. Jim, please stand up. And if you want, would like to say a couple words. I know you did a nice job the other evening when you came to introduce, but we're only going to give you a couple minutes, Jim, okay? You'll have the next 10 years to talk to that microphone.
Take me a couple minutes to figure out how to. Thank you. Well, I have been educating myself over the past couple of weeks on austerity budgets. As you know, North Syracuse has adopted an austerity budget, and I was pretty much figuring that I was going to adopt one here as well. So I'm getting myself as well versed as I could in that area. Then enter Mr. Coleman and Mr. Strain, who I think have done an outstanding job putting a financial package together for this district, not only relative to this school, but for the preceding school year as well. So I've been keeping in touch with them, where the district is headed financially, and I've been very pleased with the work. And irregardless of which way the budget goes and which way the community decides to go, these two gentlemen have done an outstanding job in a short period of time, and I'd really like to applaud their efforts. I'd like to hang out longer with you, but as you have an event tonight, I have a big event at CMS tonight, and I have to go prepare for that. It's been difficult for me to keep my head as a CMS principal and a future superintendent at the same time. I can't wait until July 1st when I can just concentrate on one job, and it's a big one, so I look forward to joining you all July 1st. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Jim. Before we get into the numbers and such, I just want to say a couple things. A good number of you have been able to already meet Joe Coleman. Joe, if you could stand. Joe has been leading the helm. He's our interim business official with us now for maybe 2.5 weeks or so.
Yes, sir.
Probably has earned about 6 months of time in that 2.5 weeks, and it is greatly appreciated. Joe joins us with a lot of experience. He is an educator first and a numbers guy second, and that's incredibly important to understand because this is the business of education. Unfortunately, numbers drive education, but Joe has been an extremely strong player because of his curriculum background, his understanding of instruction, also understanding how budgets ultimately work to get that job done. So thank you very much, Joe. Next to him is our numbers guy, Mr. Tom Strain, if you could stand, please. Tom has joined us now for probably a week and a half, two at the most.
7 days.
7 days. And counting, Tom comes recommended through the ASBO Association of New York, and that's the New York State Association of School Business Officials, where he recently retired as assistant superintendent down in Earlville, where he was business official for a number of years and then promoted to the assistant superintendency, where he was able to understand a few more of the headaches of school operations. But he has done an outstanding job with us on the numbers and brings great experience. Thank you, Tom. The other person with us is Jim Mahaney. Jim, if you could stand. He is our Jordan Elbridge treasurer. Has been doing a fine job with this team. Research consultant, kind of go and find this, come back with information. Thank you very much, Jim, for all of that. Then again, I can't say enough about Eva Champion right next to me, Superintendent Secretary, new to the chair, but outstanding as far as getting information, getting ahead of the curve, always providing input. It has been very, very critical. And we also have to mention Donna Snyder and Amy Lewis in the main office. So, thank you. Thank you for all of that. A couple weeks ago, and again, there's been a lot of conversation in and around this topic because before these gentlemen got involved in the development of where we are today, we had a presentation in the middle school where Dr. Timms came, and I don't know how many of you were able to see that presentation, but Dr. Timms came and addressed two things fundamentally. One was he gave us a pretty good, clear understanding of what's going on at the state level. And obviously when you read the newspapers or pay attention to the numbers statewide, it is not good. And it is not good not just in education, but in all sectors of the market. Our economy has taken quite a hit, and we are struggling. Dr. Timms painted that picture in reference particularly to how we're struggling in upstate schools that are very heavily aid dependent, as opposed to downstate schools that are not so aid dependent, and the equity issue within that construct. He went over some specific data as to what has happened in Jordan Elbridge and portrayed that in a manner that I think he did a very good job. It was very accurate. Jordan Elbridge got hit pretty hard. Others in our area got hit. Jordan Elbridge got hit. This is not a unique conversation. This conversation is going on across the state. The other thing that he brought to light was he really spent some time analyzing the reserve side of the district and came to the conclusion that we have some challenges there. We have some challenges in moving forward to kind of undo a knot. We believe that this team has done a very good job in a very short time understanding those concepts, and they're very difficult, getting to the bottom of some things and making the best of a big challenge. We hope that as we roll this revised budget forward to the board, and today's purpose in meeting is for this board to make a decision on moving forward with a revised budget to the public or possibly moving to contingency. That's the purpose. We hope that we can add some clarifying information in that regard. However, this situation of this school is still going to need to be supported. It's not just all bed of roses right now. We still have to continue to pay some close attention to all these areas. So, with that, I'd like to start with just putting an idea in my mind, and I hope in the board's mind, and I hope in everybody in this room's mind, is that we have a new beginning here in Jordan Elbridge. You met Jim. He would love to be here full time. He's not yet, but in a few short days, he will be your new superintendent. I'm looking out in this room, and I know quite a few of you participated in the search process. I think it was an outstanding, good search process. There was a lot of involvement from many levels, and I think we have an outstanding individual to lead us. It is not going to be easy for Jim. It's not easy for any superintendent in the state right now, but I know that I'm going to pledge all resources that I have available to help you, Jim. And my hope is that everybody in this room, everybody in this community, everybody on this board will do the same, because that's what's going to take, not only for JE, but for every school in the state of New York. We're going to get into some numbers. We have a new July beginning. These numbers were not just put in to look at this budget year. That's very important. When you do school budgeting, you try to forecast out what's going to happen next year, what's going to happen the year after. And I believe the numbers that you're going to see here are responsible numbers. Could they go either way on either side? Yes. You can always do that in a budget. We believe this team got as close to where they needed to be responsible, number one, to the students and their educational program. Number two, to what we believe the taxpayers in Jordan Oakridge can afford at this point in time. It is not perfect. I'll guarantee you, it is not perfect. We believe it is good. There is no budget in New York State, no school budget right now that people are happy with. I spent the morning at the Cayuga Dagaboses writing resolutions for terminating employees. Last year, this time of the year, I spent the morning terminating 36 employees with the BOCES. The prior year was 12. This year, we're looking in the neighborhood of 15 to 17. That's going on across the state. It's a very, very hard time. So, with that, what I'd like to do is introduce Joe and Tom to the microphone. And just beforehand, we did have a sheet outside on the table. It was there if anybody wanted to sign up to speak. You may have missed it. We have it right here. I can put it at one end of the table. If you would like to come and speak during the public comment, just come up, put your name down there, and make sure that you have access to be able to speak during the public comment. Okay? With that, Mr. Coleman, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Specker. Let me just take a minute to say something as far as where I see we are. Not you, but we. I accepted the request from Bill Speck with my eyes wide open. The passion I have for education, knowing what it can do for people, coming from a high school graduation class of 32 kids. It started at 60 in the 7th grade. You want to talk about dropout rate? That was back a number of years ago. Okay? But this is where the heart is. This is where it is with you today, or should be here, in spite of the 4 to 6 p.m. Jordan Oakridge is like the phoenix. It's rising from the ashes. We have passed the worst. We are here looking at a much better future. A future which entails the best possible information to a Board of Education, the best possible openness to you, the public, the best opportunity for decisions which are going to benefit students, staff, and the community. As Bill said, recognizing the economic basis of the community. Okay, this is a tough situation at the best of times, but we've made it as best as possible with the best information we have. And this information is not back from March, April. This is current information, which makes a difference as well. Dr. Timms did a super job as far as saying the reserves need to be looked at. Reserves need to be in appropriate categories. Okay? Tom Strain, with the support of Jim Mahaney, myself, okay? We've done this. We're looking at a real budget figure for this year and realizing the impact for next year. Not just leaving it in the lurch, saying business fine. Okay? We have heart. We are educators who believe in what we're doing. That's an important piece. And as community people, we know you do. As a Board of Education, They do. Or else they wouldn't have been elected. They wouldn't be here. They receive the support of the community to be stewards. Stewards of the money, stewards of education. They're really like a shepherd and a navigator. A navigator helping it move in the right direction, and a shepherd being there to care for the flock. This is where we are. And it's not a situation of somebody wins and somebody loses. This is where it is. All together to get the best possible education with the financial restraints we have for students, which benefits the community, which helps the staff grow, which benefits the entire situation. There we are. But thank you for being here this afternoon. Let's go. We're going to give you a brief overview, and then we're going to get to some details of numbers. If you picked up the packet of materials you came in, it's about 5 sections. If you didn't, you'll see it here, but you might want to jot down some notes. And maybe none left. Thank you. Maybe none left. Thank you. There's going to be propositions on the vote. Proposition number 1, simple. Provide funding for all school operations except for food service programs and programs covered by grants and voter-approved capital projects. The majority of the budget is for program expenses. The budget reinstates the following positions: 1 guidance counselor, 1 first-grade teacher, 1 clerical position that's going to be in the guidance office, 1 teacher aide, and a half-time athletic director. Proposition number 1, $27,026,571. This is a 2.54 budget increase with a projected 3.9 tax levy. We're going to put up 2 buses. We're going to put up a proposition to purchase 1 28-passenger bus and 1 6 to 10 passenger bus. The total cost of that is not to exceed $81,500. In addition to that, in cooperation with the 2 libraries, this is being a good family, this is being good community members, this is being good partners. This is no cost to the school district. What we're doing is providing an opportunity for the community to vote on those 2 propositions to increase by $3,000 a budget for the Elbridge Free Library and a budget for the Jordan Ramey Library. This is not part of the budget. Holy Schnizzoli. They got voted down last time. My goodness sakes. The heart of our community is and are the libraries. For parents, for kids. That's there. Once again, I can't emphasize enough. It's there. And it's below the bar, so you can't quite see it, okay? But this is not part of the school budget. It's a situation for the 2 towns, for the library. We're doing this to be good neighbors. That's what that's about. Okay, simple things. Budget hearing, June 14th at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium. Critical date. That's the date 7 days before the vote. It's got to be. The vote, budget vote, the 21st, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the Jordan Elbridge High School band room. It's during Regent Street. There's space available. It's not going to be in the gymnasium. There's a dance going on. Okay? That's why it's there. Simple as that. What the board is doing this afternoon is what Bill Speck said. They're going to make a decision to put this up for a vote or to vote for a contingent budget. And we'll get into those figures and show you what's on. You have to be at least 18 years of age. You have to be a district resident for 30 days and a citizen of the United States. Simple requirements. Those haven't changed. Years ago, if you're somebody that's got a few gray hairs, you might remember 21 years of age. But now it's 18. Okay, let's go to numbers. Let's look at the draft, which takes into account what we've got here. Well, can you move that there right a little bit? Is that possible? Yeah. Just a second. Here we go. Thomas, come on here, please. Okay. You've got the 2-10-11 approved budget. You've got the figures, the tax levy, the state aid, the fund balance, education job fund. You got transfer from school lunch, others. A total budget of 26,357,767. You got the defeated budget, 11,000,009. State aid, 12,205. Fund balance, 1,700 bucks. No money from the education jobs fund. No money from school lunch. Another 1,781,000 for a total of 27,596,582. The proposed budget you're getting today has 11,533,776. State aid, 12,812,773. That's a solid figure. When those state aid numbers come out from the governor's office, you gotta say, wait a minute, we can't depend on that. This is the number passed by the legislature. This is a solid number. It's not like wait and see. A solid number, okay? Look at the fund balance, as you see, less $1,100,000. From the federal jobs fund situation, $600,000. School lunch reserve is about $800,000. No, $800,000, $200,000. We're taking $30,000 out of that. Legitimate transfers. And you're seeing what's going on. Other revenues it might be. If we're going to sell material, if we're going to sell buses, we're going to get aid from overseas, from the aid, that type of situation. Those are, and it's reduced, it's not an inflated figure, $950,000 for a total of $27,026,571. Okay? It's a levy, and just a minute, okay? Let me just finish this slide. Okay, thank you. Okay. Text.
Just for clarity, the $600,000 education jobs fund, we put on a separate line. I believe in the defeated budget as a revenue, that was included in the other category. And so you can see the difference there. This is for clarity. This is public disclosure here, okay? So, okay. The rest of it. We're coming in with a 3.9% levy increase. We've had some changes in the budget. We pulled different numbers out of the budget. We adjusted some things. As Joe pointed out, if you look at the budget line, you'll see that there were three areas that had some significant changes. Transportation, the debt service in particular. Now the debt service, what we have done, there is a band payment that was due 12 months after, actually it had to be 24 months after it was originally taken out. That actually falls in the following year. We do have reserves for that, and this is where, to get back to what Joe was saying, we have reserves, we're anticipating using reserves in the following year. What we're really our issue right now is presenting a potential budget to put out to the voters again that addresses the issues that obviously were there when the budget was voted down. We have committed in terms of future budgets. As you see, we're committing a smaller portion of the fund balance. What we think we are doing, and what we hope we are doing, is establishing a solid groundwork for future budgets. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the state budget next year. We're hoping state revenues are going up, and they probably will be. But we don't know whether we're going to get an increase next year. We're certainly hoping for that. But that said, we are also not giving away the farm and putting future generations at risk here. We think we've presented a very conservative approach to it. We think we're coming up with what is a reasonable tax levy increase. Only the voters can determine if that's a reasonable tax levy increase. Only the board can determine whether or not we're going to put this up to the voters again, or whether we're going to go directly to a contingent budget. Which, Joe, you want to say this? Okay. Do we want to go Sure, go ahead. I'm sorry, go right ahead.
I have two questions on the first one. The first question is, you said that the state aid is a solid number, 12.88. Isn't that based on last year's estimates plugged in, and when they actually put in the ST3, we're aided on the actual expenses next year?
Yeah, that's
And not the estimate.
okay. First of all, there's maybe a little misconception over how state aid is generated. And you're right, they use the numbers from the ST3. The ST3 was submitted. However, our aid, there's a relatively small portion of the aid that is actually generated as a result of expenditures. Transportation aid is generated as a result of expenditures. BOCES aid is generated as a result of expenditures. The bulk of our aid is determined by admittedly, a very complex formula that has to do with student enrollment and various other things. This, in this ST3, or as it is Form A, Form F, and the ST3, there are also, I'm sorry about that. Okay. The bulk of the aid is from enrollment information. That said, they would have had all of this information when the legislature passed the budget on the last day of March, and the numbers reflect what was published, not only published on the internet on the state aid homepage, but also was put in the local newspapers and the regional newspapers. That is a reasonable number. And if you look historically, you'll find that that number is in fact pretty close. That said, if you go down through, you'll see that, again, we have reserves that we could rely on if we were going to fully expend the budget and we were going to be somewhat short on state aid. That's what we do. However, here's a logical thing. When you're working with your own budget and you get near the end of the month and you don't have any money in the bank, what do? You stop spending. That's what school districts do if they discover that they don't have as much money as they anticipate. Okay, so.
It's not solid, but it's a pretty solid.
Okay. Yeah.
My only other question on this.
The only other question I had on this slide was the fund balance. I've heard from several different people, sources in the district, the advisors, retired about the reserves and the actual fund balance. Has that been determined so that we know what we have in reserves and in the general fund balances designated on the reserves?
Okay. The only thing that we know for sure at this point were the audited numbers, essentially at the beginning of the year. The fund balance will be adjusted at the end of the year, but until we have actually expended all of the lines of the budget that we intend to expend, and we've received all the aid that we expect to receive, then that differential. As it looks right now, we will have underspent the budget, and our revenues will actually exceed what we anticipated, so there will be, the fund balance actually will likely increase. Okay, the actual undesignated, unreserved fund balance will likely increase. That said, as you see, while we are not looking at a nearly as large a piece for fund balance as the defeated budget has, it is an increase from the current year budget. So, okay. Yeah, while we're here, before we go further, does anybody else have any questions that we can clarify right now?
Tom, do you know where the $75,000 sales tax line is? Is that in the other category?
Yes.
Okay. And we should probably make clear to the community that is going away this year, along with the $600,000 job grant. So.
Okay. And if you look at the numbers there, you'll see that there's not a huge amount included in there. We've gone from a projection in that particular line of 1781, 438 to 950,000.
Right. I just want to make sure people
to understand what might not necessarily be handled annually on this number.
Okay. Again, we're not seers here. We don't know what will happen. If there is a major turnaround in the state and state taxes start rolling in, the sales tax starts rolling in, that's going to benefit everybody, and it will probably impact the budget for next year for the state. But who can predict?
The sales tax won't help. That was a law that was created.
Sure.
Would you concur that that's a realistic figure for what we know right now compared to the previous year?
I just wish that I had a better idea of what the other number was.
Well, we're giving you the best understanding we have, okay? And obviously, it's less than what was projected in the budget was defeated. Okay, trying to be as realistic as possible. Once again, with the latest information available. You know, that information, as you know, is changing not daily or minutely, but gosh, generally by week, every 2 weeks, you get something more to put back together, which is part of the reason for a more realistic figure right now, too.
Right. It's not that far off on the two, so that's the reason why I just want
Right, I understand. Thank you.
I was just going to say, if you pull out, in the defeated budget was the $600,000 for the jobs fund, you pull that out, you're still looking at 1.1 million there, almost 1.2 million. The number we're coming in at for other is 950,000. So I would say that's a conservative number. Okay. Okay. Now, I think most of you have a copy of this in your hand, and rather than go down through your line by line, if you look at, well, let me just get a couple things straight. When you're looking at, for instance, the superintendent's office salary, it's not the superintendent that's making $192,000. That is all the salaries in the superintendent's office. We have the superintendent's salary, we have the secretary's salary. There's occasionally overtime that's associated with the secretary or other clerical, if they were. And that's the case as you go down through there. And I guess maybe this is a good time to talk about those type of items. This first part of the budget is essentially the administrative portion of the budget. There are a couple other portions of the budget that also get reflected in the administrative budget when we break out the three-part budget. Let's flip to the next page here. If I can flip down through, and as you are sitting there and looking through, if something jumps out at you, we'd be happy to address it.
This is what you're going to get in the material sent home. You're going to have this information and this type of clarity. There's an opportunity for a budget hearing on the 14th, okay, to ask more specific questions. So a chance to see this and turn it over and look at it and ask questions on the 14th. What you're hearing this afternoon is really quite similar to what you're going to hear on the 14th. But by law, the board has to adopt it. We have to see what the budget is. And there has to be a budget hearing for the public to respond. And 7 days before the vote. That's how it's going, okay?
So, actually, I should direct this to the board, and excuse me if I have, because this presentation is for you. You're going to have to make the decision whether we go to another vote, or whether we take these numbers and go ahead and put it out to the electorate again. So, that said, shall we continue to the next page on this? Okay. Let's go to the bottom of this page, and that has the totals again. We'll reiterate the totals that we have in the overall budget here. One more click down, I think. One more click down. There we go. Okay. So we're looking at an increase. It doesn't have a percent on here, but again, the budget over the 2010-11 adopted budget is 2.54%. It is coming in, as you can see, about a little over about 550,000 less than the defeated budget. And shall we flip to the next page? Okay, I think we're going to put a column in there. Okay, everybody see that? And again, I think you have that in your packet that you're looking at. This is a requirement that came about, I don't know, at this point, probably 10 years ago, to separate it into the three components. And you can see that the percentages stay very similar. You can ask questions as we go along as to why there have been changes. But again, at this point, I want to just point out a couple things that are in the different components. As we look at it, start with the capital component. The capital component has what you would expect to be in it. That's where your debt service is, the payments that we're going to be making to the bondholders for constructions now, construction that occurred in the past. It also includes all of the salaries and expenses for the operation and the maintenance of the facilities here. All of the custodial work, all of the grounds work, all of that. So those are the biggest components of that. The administrative component. Now, it isn't just the administrator's salaries or just the administrator's office, and that's an important part. And that I hope everybody is aware of that. That includes data processing. It includes some central copying. It includes the BOCES administrative costs. It includes all of the secretaries. It includes the staff development associated for the teachers. That is included in the administrative costs. It also includes principal salaries. It does include instructional personnel in a couple other places, including special education and athletics. Those things are part of the administrative budget. Sometimes people look at that and say, holy cow, how many administrators do you have at that? That's what we're looking at. The state has defined the components as being administrative. They're administrative, but without that piece of administration, which includes the business office, nobody else will get their check. So we do all the payroll, all of the accounts payable, all of the accounts receivable, for that matter. That all is part of the administrator. What remains, in addition to that, is the employee benefits that are associated with the administrators. Actually, the administrators and any other employees in that component. And for that matter, in the capital component, that also includes the employee benefits for the people in the operation and maintenance, the custodians. We get to the biggest component by far is the program component, and that is what we do here. That's what we're all about. It's the instruction of our children. It is the transportation of our children. It is within that also is our athletics. The interscholastic athletics are in there, and that's those components of the employee benefits as a portion of that is reflected in the personnel, that is in the teaching and the counseling, the nurse's office for that matter. So, okay, that's general. Go ahead. The board, any questions on that? Yes, sir.
Under the general support, central services, operation and maintenance, there's equipment line that had $50,700. That's removed from your new proposed budget. Do you know what that equipment was?
I would refer to Luke. Okay.
Was there a truck or something that we would...
You're looking at, there was something that was a fund in there one time for replacement of lawnmowers, okay? And certainly for other maintenance situations. We looked at this and said, well, okay, we're squeezing nickels for the Buffalo Bucks. I don't know how to say that, okay? But that's what it is. But still maintaining the best educational program possible for kids.
That's fine. I just wanted to something affecting safety.
All right. Yes.
I need some more information on the capital improvement piece, and I know that this almost $908,000 reduction in the capital improvement piece. It's hard for us because we haven't gotten change orders, we haven't gotten an updated budget, and so my question is, is this $900,000 based on the fact that we're not making this band payment? And is it based on the fact that we will have a state aid flow that's coming in the 11-12 calendar year that is being used to offset the budget? And with that said, how will that impact 12-13, 13-14, 14-15, and so on?
If you think we know that, you're dreaming. We can't go that far out. We certainly can go in terms of the projection for the expenditures that are associated with your building project. We can go out there. That obviously cannot be viewed entirely by itself. Will we be able to fund that entirely with our reserves from now until the building project's over? Probably not. But yes, as the building project progresses, as more contracts are awarded, and I believe that there was bid opening this week, and I don't know how big it was, I don't know exactly what it was about, but once that contract is awarded, then you submit to the state an SA 139, an SA 139. When the state receives the SA 139, they analyze it, and that is the basis for the subsequent year's building aid. Okay, I'm sorry.
But my question is, where did this $1 million deduction come from?
Okay, you're talking about where we moved, and I think I said that, we moved a band payment from this year's projected budget, meaning the 2011-12 budget, we moved the band payment as it would be statutorily 2 years after it originated in backtrack. If you do a band payment for a bond anticipation note is before money. It's different than a bond because it's essentially short term. It's called bond anticipation note because you normally take that loan with the anticipation that you're going to bond, and that bond is going to pay off that bond anticipation note. The regulation in the state education department is that within 2 years, if you renew the band, within 2 years, you have to start paying down the principal on that. The band was originally taken out in July of whatever it is at this point, 2010, and so it will actually, the second renewal will fall due in July of 2012, which puts it in the next budget year. Is this just finagling and moving figures? No, it isn't. It's where we feel it really should be. There are some philosophical differences. That's where we think it should be. But we have reserves, and we can go through reserves. We have sufficient reserves, we feel. Certainly, we wouldn't propose it otherwise. Between reserves and fund balance and whatever we're going to get in state aid, we fully intend to make our payments. We're not going to default on anything, and obviously we're not going to come back and ask for more taxes after it, but that's where that came from. That came from moving it to the next year.
And how much is that anticipated payment supposed to be? Do we know?
The actual debt service principal is around $714,000 or $714,000 or something like that.
And are we not slated to make one of those payments annually every year after that?
Right.
So I guess my question is, and I know we're not necessarily playing a numbers game, and philosophically we might have a different opinion on this, but technically doesn't that mean we're going to have two in the following year?
No. The following one will be in July. It will continue to be in July. It will always be in July.
Okay. And we're going to have additional debt service oncoming from phase 2 of the project.
Absolutely.
So my concern is that if we begin to get the state aid in the 2011-12 year, we'll be placing that towards the reduction of the tax levy, the local share of the levy. And with that said, will there not be a significant swing from 11-12 to 12-13, adding that because we're taking the state aid and reducing the levy in 11-12, technically we're not adding any debt service in 11-12. So we're taking, say, $800,000 figure in state aid, and we apply that towards 11-12, and then we turn around and we add that bond anticipation note with that $700,000 for 12-13. Are we not making like a $1.3 million
No, we're not. because the next one you're saying is going to be in July of 2013. The next one after that will be in July of 2014. We have essentially moved the whole piece ahead.
But my concern is, and I agree with you, I understand what you're saying, but my concern is if we have the ability to pay that this year, next year we lose $600,000 in the job grant, we lose $75,000 in state aid. So now we're adding that $700,000 payment to next year, plus we're losing $675,000 in revenue. That's a $1.4 million swing. I'm not sure where we're going to come up with that cash flow for 2013.
If you go back to our revenue page, you'll see that what was there in the budget that was defeated. You'll see that our numbers are considerably lower. Therefore, we will be reducing those funds considerably less. They also were using that $600,000 from the jobs fund. They knew it was going to go away. The only difference is they were going to make a bigger contribution or a bigger payment in the current year that was going to require a 7.2%, I believe, increase in the budget, and in fact that budget got voted down. So what we are presenting is a different approach to it. It is entirely fiscally sound. It is fiscally appropriate. It is prudent.
And I understand that for this year. I guess my
okay, that's what I'm just saying. It isn't
my
just.
concern is we, as a board, and to the community, we have to follow through for what's going to happen next year.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but that is what I'm showing you. Right there, we are not going to be using as much of the fund balance. We are not going to be counting on other sources that they were going to be counting on last time. Those funds are all going to be there next year. Sorry.
I was under the impression when we delivered this that $600,000 was in the fund balance that was carried over in the general fund that was moved and carried and held from last year to this year.
I don't have any argument about that. I know that is. I have built it. You could address that. You showed me where that fund or where that money is coming from on a sheet. It is a federal grant. It is it is in order to preserve a number of positions within the budget. That was allowed.
And we received it last year and saved it for
that's not my understanding at all. We received, in the current year, we received $700,000 for a different one. This is, I'm sorry, Bill, I defer.
Yeah, the jobs funds was actually received, as far as announced, last August. So it was the beginning of this year. It could have been used for this year wisely. Very few schools did use it for this year. They banked it for the following year. However, when you get into it, it's very, very prescriptive in nature. The types of jobs that it retains, you can't use it to retain administrative positions. It's teaching jobs, bus drivers, cafeteria. It's very restrictive and it comes with a pile of paperwork.
My point is, this is my point. That money was in the defeated budget as well. That was anticipated.
No, I understand that. My question is so was the band payment. We were going to make the band payment in the defeated budget. And my concern is that with that shift to 2012-13, that we're putting ourselves in a position, and trust me, I understand the philosophical mindset. I'm concerned about the following year for our taxpayers. That's a 7% tax levy right there. Plus the $600,000, it's a double-digit tax levy for 12-13 that I'm concerned about.
Okay, it won't be a double-digit tax levy. That's a given.
How do you know that?
Not only because of reserve, because of the tax cap. But there won't be.
Okay, but the reserves, is that not our cash flow also in our operating budget?
You're going to have to clarify that. I don't know what you mean.
My concern is that if we continue to rely upon our reserves every single year, eventually that 4.3 to 3 million to 1.5 is going to be gone. And my concern is how eventually we have to find the money.
Okay. Here's a situation. What typically happens, and this goes for whether it is your personal budget or whether it's a school budget. At the end of the year, we don't often, and maybe the word is never, actually spend the entire budget. And often we receive more, or at least as much as we anticipate in revenue. That difference always goes back to the fund balance. So if for instance, I commit $700,000 in fund balance this year, and my revenues compared to my expenditures exceed that, my revenues exceed the expenditures by $700,000, that money never actually goes away. But if maybe they only exceed them by $600,000, that means my fund balance has been reduced by $100,000. But in order to project that all has to do with how we spend our budget. We don't have much control over the revenues, that's true, but we do have a lot of control over the expenditure side of the budget. That's where we do it, and this is what really, this is an important point.
Could I just interject?
Sure, absolutely.
I think Connie is driving us into a place that we really do have to consider, because we're assuming that we're not going to be making cuts next year. And Connie, you're absolutely right.
It can't happen. I mean,
As we get forward in this, we would not be responsible here sitting today saying that it's going to be another easy year next year. So we have to listen to Connie here. We understand that we have pushed the ban out. It's legally correct. But we will be in a position next year, as will all school districts, as we look at our finances, because our operating expenses go up, our health care costs go up, our unemployment insurance goes up, that we will be looking at more than likely cuts if the state doesn't project increased revenues. We know the state is not going to produce extreme increases in revenues, and realistically, we're going to be lucky if we get any increase. So to sit here today to think that next year we won't be making cuts is highly unlikely.
I'd like to make another comment on the concerns Connie has raised. We have been operating on the debt service schedule for 20, 30 years, with December and June payments. Our state aid, our building aid, debt service aid, is paid the following year based on the payments we made the previous year.
No, that is wrong. It is not based on any payments we made. It is based on the SA 139. That used to be the case. It is not the case.
So next year, when we pay less, and in 2000.
It'll have no effect.
So we're going to get the same amount of building aid or debt service aid when we have more debt payments, when we push it off to the following year.
Well, our building aid will be determined by what we submit to the state in terms of what contracts have been written with what contracts have been written in order to perform whatever is necessary in the building project. Has nothing to do with what we spend.
But they don't pay us when the capital project
Let me just say this, but there's another. When you look at the output report and what we anticipate getting in the state aid, they give you a separate line for building aid. When we get our monthly payments from the state, it doesn't have a breakout for building aid. It has an overall monthly payment that we receive. So what I'm saying is, moving this to the next will not affect the amount of aid we get this year. It won't affect the amount of aid we get next year. It will affect what? Or the following year.
But the application of that aid this year is going towards reducing the tax levy, the local share of the tax levy, that is not going to be offset by anything, because we're not putting that bond anticipation into the 11-12 budget. So my concern is that we're using that money that we're getting from the state to reduce our operating expenses and not necessarily reducing our capital project expenses, and that's a concern I have.
The alternative is to put the money back in there and pay it this year. The only thing that would possibly do would be significantly increase the taxes this year. That's it. That's the only way. That's where that money's going to come.
Is that going to significantly increase the taxes next year?
No, it won't. It will not.
I don't understand how that can't happen.
We go to the comparison motion, please. The revised budget and the contingent budget, side by side. Give me the contingent, give it to side by side. This is perfect. What we're going to give you now is a comparison of the revised 2011-2012 budget in contrast to the contingent budget requirements. Okay, once again, a summary for the revised 2011-12 tax levy, where it is $1,533,776, state aid $12,812,773, fund balance $1,100,000, the job situation $600,000, transfer to the lunch program $30,000, and other $950, for a total of $27,002,651. If it becomes a contingent budget, we have to look at what the 2010-11 budget was. Subtract the debt service, that is to come out, for a net, as it's stated here, net basis, $42,916,548, and your allowed available expenses of $1.92, which is $439,998. So you've got the net base, the allowable increase, you add back in the debt service after that calculation, and you come up with a contingent budget of $26,832,177. Reduction required to get to that, let me say it again, or the reduction required to get to that is $194,394. That's going to come from equipment, it's going to come from transportation, it's going to come from staff, it's going to come from the field trip situation. I mean, this is once again, as I said a few minutes ago, this is squeezed difference. We're not putting you in a situation of getting a budget passed, if that's the decision you want to make, okay? And that's the president of the public, okay? And putting you in a pickle for the 12, 13 year. That is not the case. So this is where it is. Does that make sense? Yes, it does.
Under the contingency budget, would that bond anticipation note get paid? Is it a legal requirement?
The bond anticipation? No, well, it can be